And we say hello to you on this Friday before Christmas. And we're glad you're here and look forward to what we think will be a really fun show and a meaningful show as well as we get started here. Our last show before the holidays. Thanks for being a part. And we begin talking about Joe Burrow Stadium, the high school stadium of the great Joe Burrow will have his name on it. How about that? That's not bad. Heisman Stadium, what's next? Well, what's next for Vanderbilt? Quarterback Mo Hassan has entered the transfer portal. And Nashville has reacted. So has Salt Lake City. Remember a couple weeks ago when I trashed you? Well, I didn't trash them. I just told the truth. I said the country didn't really want to see Utah in the playoffs. Columnist for the Salt Lake Tribune, Scott Pierce, said, hey, I was right. You know what? How often do you find an honest columnist in a town anymore? One that's not afraid of bucking the system. Well, Scott, you are my man of the year. I would come out to Utah to present you with an award, but I'm still not sure I feel safe out there in the land of the Utes. Could have been worse. Brandon Marcello, he's on deck. We'll talk to him about many things. Andy Staples will join us. Nick Suss from the Clarion Ledger. And then one of the great guests of the year, the Archbishop Joseph Marino. His new job is the president of the Pontifical Ecclesiastical Academy in Rome. He was the papal nuncio to Kuala Lumpur and that part of the world, and we'll talk about his new position. And also get some bowl picks from the... Anyway, we probably won't. Anyway, you can tell we're loose today. We're having fun because why not? It's the holiday season, and if you're not at an airport, you're lucky. 855-242-7285 is our number. Plenty of times for calls. And let's hit Augie, who is in NOAA. Hey, Augie, good afternoon to you.
Greetings, Paul. How are you, my friends?
I'm doing great, Augie. Great to have you on.
Hey, it's Christmas season, so things are slow, so I get to call in on a non-Monday.
I like that.
As far as Utah, you are persona non grata as far as I read last in the Salt Lake Tribune, so I would stay out of that.
I don't think I'm the first person to be persona non grata out there.
No, I think the U.S. government was the first.
Yeah, I think they were. And by the way, I have no issue with the state or the people of the state. I'm sure both of them are really good people.
They are. I actually had a seminar out at the university. It's really nice, and this was years back. Really nice university. Salt Lake City was very clean at the time, but now I hear they've got some issues. But all cities do. Paul, I know you're going to be talking with the papal nuncio, but if you had to take a trip to Rome to meet the Pope, which SEC coach would you take with you, and why?
Wow. I'd probably take, without thinking, I'd take Saban because I know he's Catholic. And there's a good chance the Pope may have heard of him. I mean, I don't mean this the wrong way, but if you're deciding to take Saban or Sam Pittman, I mean, which one would you choose?
I'd choose Ogeron. I mean, the guy from South Louisiana. Do you know that years ago in the 70s when Notre Dame played LSU, they put a fact out there were more Catholic students at LSU than Notre Dame, which I probably believe is still true. But
so I'm assuming Ogeron is Catholic?
Hey, he's from South Louisiana. I think the chances are like 99.99% he is.
Well, why don't I take both?
You could take them both. That would be pretty interesting. Now, you might need a translator for Coach O, and I'd volunteer for that. But
what makes me nervous, and I don't mean this the wrong way, but we go and we get blessed by the Pope, and he's talking in Latin, and then Coach O goes, "Go Tigers!"
Yeah, you definitely need a
that might just not be appropriate. I don't know. Maybe it would be. But, knowing this Pope, and I don't know him, but our guest later will, he probably would find that to be very humorous.
I think he would. And knowing if he has any real
of course, hey, Augie, I know this happened a lot during the House impeachment investigation. But could I amend my answer?
Absolutely.
Okay, I am going to amend it to Coach O for this reason. Because I mean, if you had the Pope and Nick Saban in the same room, you know there's a joke coming here.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want to say it, but
go ahead, Paul. It's Christmas.
Yeah, I mean,
come on, Paul. You got to give it to us. Give the people what they want.
I mean, you know what the joke is, and I'm not going to say it. It's I don't want to. I would rather not be on the record making that much of a shot at Nick Saban.
Okay, well, and this brings me to sort of the point. I get to listen to your podcast, and they're really entertaining. This guy Larry and Legend. And,
oh yeah.
After all that has happened over the past couple of weeks and Bama's downfall, I'll say downfall.
Yeah.
Has this given you pause in reflecting upon your relations with the Bama Nation?
Well, listen, I love my friends in Alabama, and they have been very good to me. But one thing that people don't remember, though, is that I lived in Alabama for a long time, and it wasn't always like it is or was. I know I'm using a lot of past, future, and present tenses here, but before Saban got there, I was not the most popular man in the state. And we often tried to tell people that, but they wouldn't listen.
Yeah, I didn't know you before you went national, but you seem to me to be the kind of guy that's going to call it as you see it. Did you ever consider, though, some kind of mediation with your hardcore Bamarites?
No, because I don't. I mean, if I could just speak to you, I don't think they really want to listen to the truth.
So you didn't sign a prenup with them, right?
No. Yeah. I mean, the one thing I take Bama fans for better or worse. They don't feel the same way about me.
Well, I want to caution you that if you do get into an altercation with Larry, you will be charged with elder abuse. So
yeah,
I'm just giving you some advice.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really I challenged him to a boxing match, but I don't think that's fair to him. And I don't need the AARP. Of which I get a card every month, and I mean, I do not send them money, but yeah, I am. I'm a de facto member.
Well, I would say that if you get into a fight with him, you won't be able to knock out his teeth because you'll probably take him out before you get into the ring. But Paul, all the best, season's greetings, and really appreciate your show and be looking forward to it for the next couple of days.
Thanks,
for the
Augie.
big bowl season.
Great to have you on, and really fun. And listen. We're here to have fun today. I mean, I am not going to get into any spats. A guy called yesterday and said that I've been bordering on being Mr. Cranky Pants. I mean, I want to say I've worked very hard to be here today, so we can all have a good time. I do not want to be accused of being Mr. Cranky Pants. Daniel is in Texas.
Happy holidays, Paul.
Hey, Daniel. Thank you.
Hey, Paul, the last time I got a chance to visit with you, I know it was short-lived because you had the unbelievable show, and I referenced back to your visit to Tennessee, and you specifically were talking about your time at the student newspaper. In fact, I think you read one of your columns that you wrote.
Right.
And it really perked my interest in knowing that I think you kind of alluded to the fact that you had struggled a little bit as a student and trying to put it together, and I think that's the same condition that a lot of the students that work at the student newspapers these days are up against. And I just was calling on you today to help promote the university newspapers across the SEC. And specifically, I was hoping that you could use your influence with Mr. Tim Cook at Apple and perhaps where they could donate some electronics to those fine people.
Well, let me say this, and I have talked to, this is not a secret here, but I'm extremely interested in academia, and I've spoken to a couple of schools over the years about playing a role in some small way, and that's my interest, because when we had those students on from the University of Tennessee a couple of months ago, it really struck a nerve with me about where I came from, and I wouldn't be here without that experience in Knoxville. And I'm really concerned because of the ever-changing dynamics of journalism today, that students are not, they're getting great educations, but I'm not sure they're getting great experiences, if you follow me. And what I learned was real life experiences working at a school newspaper. You can't learn that using a bunch of high-tech equipment that prepares you for later in life. And that's a great idea, and I will mention that to Tim Cook when I see him next.
That's beautiful, Paul, and I want to wish you and Mrs. Finebaum happy holidays, and also to your staff there. There's some really great people.
Thank you very much, and we really we have an amazing staff here, and it's nice of them to show up today. Randy, thanks for being here. You're welcome. Mark, thanks for being here. Danny, the whole gang. Oh, Danny's not here.
Thank you, Danny.
I saw him earlier. He was sipping a little of the company eggnog, maybe a lot. We'll take a short break. Back with more. So we are back, and we will continue today, spending so much time reflecting back on the decade, which ends in about a week and a half. Mark, so interesting, just thinking about the great moments of the decade.
Yeah, we've gone through teams, and there's plays, but Paul, I want to ask you, what is your favorite memory in college football in the last decade?
Probably go down to Miami in early 2013. It was an important night for me because I met the heads of ESPN for the first time that night, and I was about to leave where I was to head here. That was part of it. It was exciting meeting the leadership team. But you know what the most exciting part of that night was?
What was that?
Watching Alabama beat Notre Dame by 28 points.
It always comes back to Notre Dame.
Right?
I was
Isn't
waiting
that
for it.
fun?
I was like,
Yeah.
how is he going to get there? I was waiting for you to get there.
I'm happy in that your favorate memery of the decade at least includes Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That's.
I mean, I couldn't.
That says something.
Considering Jamari there, I couldn't very well pick the two second and 26. I wouldn't
Paul,
do that.
it's been a week of just remembering the times that
really
Georgia has
wasn't my
had.
favorite moment.
Yeah, was that your favorite play?
No, I mean, I listen. Probably the most dramatic thing I personally witnessed was at the very beginning of the decade when I was at Bryant-Denny Stadium on a cold, raw Friday afternoon.
Cam back.
To see Cam. I mean, that was just stunning to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and to sit there and have that's kind of the. I think when Auburn won that was the SEC just keeps winning everything. It was Florida, LSU, Alabama, and then you added Auburn in there,
into
right?
It, yeah.
I will
and
tell you
that's
another
really
one,
where
one of my favorite moments. So it was a Monday after the selection Sunday, and I met Commissioner Slide for lunch, and we sat down at our normal place, and I said, "Well, congratulations, Commissioner, you've won the national championship again." And he looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" And it took him a second, then he broke out into a laugh because LSU was playing Alabama.
that's great.
It's pretty good.
Anyway, welcome back. Glad you're all here. And Art is up next.
yes.
Art, thanks for the call. Good afternoon.
Yes, Paul. I'm sorry about missing you like that, buddy. And the other thing about it is, the jogging situation. When you first came into the picture, everybody started jogging. And Andrew Kilpatrick was one of the best athletes. And I think he's one of the first Alabamians, to knock it out of the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, he's an old friend of mine. We kind of grew up together at the Birmingham newspaper, and I miss seeing him.
He was truly a great man and a good neighbor. I hope he's doing well. And the thing about it is any God-fearing shark wouldn't ever take a bite at Boss Hogg. And I thought the guy was just spot on with Boss Hogg, swimming in a pool of sharks. You know what I mean? See, I'm recovering, Paul Finebaum. You understand?
You're recovering, Paul Finebaum?
Yeah, yes, exactly. I don't accept any outside contributions either. And so that's what I said. You know.
And one
You
thing
said
I
the
never
same-
do, I have never been to a wine cave.
A wine cave?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You had to watch the
That's not-
debate last night to catch that joke, and obviously no one did.
No. I didn't catch it.
I caught it
That's
on the
great that
replay.
you went to a wine cave. But yeah, thanks a whole lot, Paul. You're always great. And
Hey,
I
listen,
sure
thank
do
you, Art.
Bye-bye.
Great to have you on. Art, always contributing. Steely Dan. Steely is next in Kentucky.
Yes, sir. I just want to tell you what a blessing you are, buddy. I
thank
discovered you about 6 months ago. I've been in the service, and I'm a retired police officer,
Oh, are you really?
and for 22 years, and I busted all them meth labs over the years. It burnt my lungs up, and I discovered your show about 6 months ago, and it's been a blessing to me.
Well, listen. First of all, what great work to be in law enforcement and for that long. And what was your branch of service when you were?
United States Marine Corps.
Wow, Semper Fi.
Yep, that.
In
you
my
just don't know
next
what
life,
blessing
I'm
you
going to
have
be a
in, and
Marine.
you just don't know. Sometimes I get excited when it going around here with this oxygen line. You know, some of them people calls in trying to put you down. But, buddy, you're a blessing to a lot of people out here.
Well, still, you don't have any idea what that means to all of us here. You take care of yourself and know one thing, that you've done great service to your community and in this country.
Well, one more thing. This is how the Lord works. I've been on life support 3 times, and I've been brought off of it. So I'll leave you with that note, and people ought to be thankful for every day they got in life.
Well, that is a great statement there, Steely. Thank you very much. You have a great holiday.
You too, sir. God bless you.
Thank you. I mean, listen. I don't know. Maybe it's the time of the year, and somebody told me today maybe we should act like we act now all during or throughout the year. But when you think about something like that, I mean, I have never had anything like that happen to me where I was about to check out. But maybe earlier today, I should say. But I mean, that's pretty amazing, isn't it, to be on life support 3 times and to come back? I mean, I think then you do appreciate the meaning of life, and I know so many of you do, but that's pretty remarkable when you think about it. Let's check out Ray in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's pretty remarkable to live in Fort
Paul,
Wayne,
that's
isn't
a
it?
beautiful story. I'm going to pray for that man. That's a beautiful story.
I hope so. Thank you.
Hey, Alabama, you think they're going to be ready to play the Bullies? You know, they remember the one that you got that they missed by an extra point, Brady, and they won beat you guys up there. You know, he thinks Auburn got a bunch of points, so he thinks he's going to get the same thing on you guys.
I think you're right.
So I hope you think they're going to be ready to play.
I think Alabama will be in good shape in that game, yes.
Yeah, I think they should win by 2 or 3, 4 touchdowns.
Is that what you're hoping, or is that what you think?
Well, that's what I'm hoping. I can't stand them much. You know, they're arrogant and they're prideful. You know, I wish somebody could keep humbling them because they need that. But anyways, Paul, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Okay?
Thank you so very much. Great to hear from you. Jerry is in Georgia. Hello, Jerry.
Yeah, Paul, this is first-time caller, a long-time listener.
Well, thank you very much.
I wanted to just pass on that this time last year I was in and out of the hospital for the entire football season up till day before Christmas. And the highlight of my day was Paul Finebaum show. And I attribute, my recovery to the Paul Finebaum show and you, and I just really appreciate you.
Oh my goodness! Well, Jerry. First of all, I'm assuming and I'm hoping that this Christmas is going to be better than last. But that is remarkable that you found some joy from this crazy show we do every day.
Yeah, I'm doing well now. I'm doing well. So You know,
I mean, I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
So, because and when you're down and you're struggling a little bit, I'm curious what you found from what we do here that helped you get through it.
Well, I guess
I'm going to take notes.
I guess as much as anything, it took my mind off my situation.
I see.
I was in kidney failure and facing.
Oh my goodness.
Had emergency dialysis and was facing long-term dialysis, but I was blessed that I didn't have to have that, and so I'm doing a lot better now.
Well, I'm extremely interested in the kidney situation. I mean, are you pretty stable right now?
I've been stable for the past 8 months.
Wow. I mean, I have friends who have gone through that with their parents and friends, and that is a very difficult thing to go through. For those who don't know what we're talking about here, it's extremely tough. Listen, I'm so proud and pleased to hear you doing well, and you have the greatest Christmas ever, and you've inspired me to quit complaining to everyone and try to enjoy life a little bit more.
Well, you too, Paul, and Merry Christmas to you and all your staff there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I tell you what, I'm going home right now because I've heard 2 or 3 calls that have given me some a new lease on life. Because you just forget sometimes when you're doing whatever you're doing that people out there are going through a much more difficult time than you. I mean, you know what, guys? I look at life being difficult just having to deal with Mark Kubiak every day. I mean, nothing personal, but he's a Notre Dame fan. We'll be right back. Much more to come. We'll get this show on the road. They've gotten a lot of conversation. Well, it started off pretty well, national championship, and a couple years later, Auburn nearly won another national championship. How about that? Imagine if they had. Shizik won the first. Malzahn nearly won the second.
People forget how good that Florida State Auburn game
last
was.
BCS ever, last BCS national championship game.
Auburn had the game won. I mean,
did.
I'll never get over that game.
Yeah. But to be fair, Auburn has had some of the greatest moments this decade.
Sure.
You know, I mean, like they've beaten Bama 4 times.
Yep, 10, 13, 17.
You know, and when you beat a team 4 times in the dynasty that Alabama's had, it speaks volumes to where you are, Paul. I mean, this is this is Auburn's most successful decade, right? I mean, you have the national championship, you have a Heisman Trophy winner,
another national championship appearance.
Well, they once beat Alabama 6 straight years.
Yeah, but Alabama wasn't good.
Yeah, no, but it's still pretty good. I mean, listen, Auburn's
there was a point in time when
What's that?
Auburn's had some really good teams.
They've had some great teams.
The 04 team, right? Went undefeated, didn't have a chance to
the
play for a
80s
title.
were pretty sweet for Auburn. They won the SEC 4 straight years.
Yeah.
Pat Dye.
That's true. That's fair. They just seem like to go hand in hand with what Alabama has done has been remarkable. I mean, nobody had a closer seat to it than you in the first part of the decade there. I mean, it's where the show basically blew up and exploded on, Paul. What was it like kind of covering that?
Well, if you go back to 2009, just think about it for a second. Alabama won in 09, Auburn in 10, Alabama in 11 and 12, and Auburn played for it and came within a play in 13. I mean, that run right there, it's unmatched.
And they also stopped Bama's three-peat, right?
Yeah.
The kick six stopped the three-peat.
Stopped the three-peat. We got to look at the
Mount Rushmore.
The Mount Rushmore.
As predicted. I mean, Cam has to be the first person here.
Yeah.
Cam's there.
We decided to go
Yeah.
Trey Mason,
Running
back, Heisman finalist, I believe, also. Nick
Wasn't
Fairley,
bad.
great defensive tackle.
Fairley
And
was
then,
amazing.
and then this year, I mean, it's kind of tough not to put Derek Brown on that. I mean, he might be one of the better defensive linemen we've had in the SEC this decade.
Yeah.
So, had to put him on there as well, Paul.
You agree with the top 4 there, Paul?
Listen, so many really good players, but you can't knock any of those off. Welcome back, Brandon Marcella joining us, who may have some thoughts on the all-decade team. Brandon, good afternoon, and nice of you to join us. So the staff here just took a wild swing, starting with Cam, which is a pretty good place to start. How would you break down the decade in terms of only 4 players?
Before I called here, I would have to go with Cam Newton, obviously, number one. I'd also put Derek Brown there, the defensive tackle who's on the team right now. First unanimous All-American Auburn's had since 1990. I'd have to go with running back Trey Mason, who broke Bo Jackson's
We got 3. We're 3 for 3
record.
so far.
Okay. That's good. So I'd have to go with him. And then fourth, I'd go with Chris Davis, the kick six hero.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I thought he had a solid career, but listen, I think one moment can define your entire life, and goodness gracious, what a moment that was. It's the best moment maybe in college football history as far as just one play and ending to a game, and why shouldn't it be on the Mount Rushmore?
Yeah. Sounds like you're going to do a mixtape for Nick Saban and put the penalty at the end of the game on as well. It is remarkable, Brandon, for all the teeth gnashing and angst that Auburn fans have displayed toward Malzahn and even toward Chiswick toward the end. It's still been it's an amazing and extraordinary decade.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, they went to 2 national championship games, won one of them, went to 3 SEC championship games, won 2 of them. They've won 10 games or more, 3 times, and they could potentially do it 4 times with a bowl win this year, and they've done it with this little asterisk next to it. They've done it during one of the most dominant decades in Alabama history, if not the most dominant, in the same state. So I think it's quite remarkable what Auburn was able to do in this past decade, winning a national title, winning a couple of SEC titles, and seemingly always in the mix. Well, I'd say every other year, potentially in the SEC West race. I think it's a pretty amazing feat, and the common denominator in all that has been Gus Malzahn, whether as an offensive coordinator or as the head coach.
Let me ask you about Malzahn, because now that this has calmed down, he's gone right back to where he always is after a win over Bama. But do you think maybe some Auburn fans, and give you credit, the night before the game you were still standing firm behind him being around. Do you think this will calm everyone down finally, or another up and down season next year, fans will be right back to where they were?
Yeah, I think what it does in the interim, and then going into the preseason for that matter, it gives them a lot of confidence because the schedule's a little bit easier despite what the back half of the schedule looks like. This is not going to be a schedule next year that was like this year where it was top 10 team, top 10 team, top 10 team, and doing so on the road. This year, next year is going to be a little bit different. You know, you trade Florida for Kentucky. You don't have to open the season against Oregon. You're playing North Carolina instead, which is going to be a good team, but not as good as obviously Oregon was this season. So fans are going to sit back and go, okay, we got all these pieces coming back on offense, lose something on defense, but they've built up a lot of depth there. They've been a consistently top 15 defense the last 4 years under Kevin Steele. Why shouldn't it continue? I think that they'll go in with some very healthy expectations. Now, the issue you go into is if you start losing a couple games you shouldn't. But this is kind of my feeling about the whole situation. I think, Gus Malzahn beating Alabama this year gave him 2 more years at least, unless he has a losing season next season, which he's never had in the college game. So I don't believe that'll happen next year. I think he'd have to completely lose a team for that to happen. So I think he'd be safe next year, even if they were to go 7-5 or whatever. And then obviously 2021 would be a huge year for him. But I think just that Iron Bowl win really bought him 2 years more on the Plains.
What did you sense, Brandon, from recruiting? And I ask that because it seemed like a really good recruiting year for Auburn, although nationally didn't get a lot of attention.
Yeah, listen, they've been pretty consistent getting top 10 classes other than last year. And this year, in the 24/7 Sports Composite, they're number 7. I think they're number 5 in the ESPN rankings nationally. The issue is it doesn't get a lot of attention because, 5 of the top 7 teams in the 24/7 Sports Composite are SEC teams. And Auburn, is in the middle of all that. So it doesn't look like it's fantastic in the scheme of things. But what it actually is when you look at it is when you got that many SEC teams in the top 10 or in the top 5, it's just like pick or choose which class is better, because it all comes down to not necessarily the greatest collection of talent. It's the greatest collection of talent in the positions of need that you need, and how those kind of go and filter through over the next few years. Do they mostly contribute next season, or is it 2 years down the road, or is it spread out over the 4 years? I think that a lot of that, I mean, it's very difficult to kind of really judge until you see when these guys get on the field, who they're working with. But that's why Auburn's been able to contend, every other year or so in the SEC West, because they've had top 10 classes, and they're in that big jumbled mess of top 10 classes among all the other elites in the SEC, and especially in the SEC West. But this class right here, number 7 in the nation, I think it might be by numbers is the second or third best of the Gus Malzahn tenure, and it could potentially get better, maybe get into the top 5 range in 24/7 Sports Composite when they have their second signing day in February, because I know they're really going after 5-star offensive tackle Broderick Jones, who's currently a Georgia commitment.
Yeah, let me ask you in relation to recruiting wars. I mean, it used to be, back in the day, Alabama, Auburn were always in battle for the same guys. But does Auburn see Georgia more? Do they see Alabama? Or because of the broad spectrum of recruiting now, you pretty much see everyone?
I think it's more Georgia now. Auburn's really made its home in recruiting outside of the state of Alabama, in the Atlanta area, in North Georgia. And they're competing against Georgia for a lot of those guys, and most of those guys are defensive linemen. And more often than not, Rodney Garner, Auburn's defensive line coach, has won those battles. And then that's why, look at Derek Brown. He's from Georgia, just an amazing talent, unanimous All-American. He's brought in a lot of players out of Georgia's backyard into Auburn, and not only are they great players, obviously, and he's beating Georgia for them, but it's like added an extra oomph to things when they get into the Georgia game in these years that they've gone on to win the SEC title or go compete for the SEC championship game. Those Georgia kids have big games against Georgia and leads them to victory back in 2017 and 2013. So I think that they're recruiting right now. Obviously, they go head-to-head with Alabama on several kids every year, but I think it's become more of an Auburn-Georgia battle, especially late in the process, than it has maybe in recent memory, even the last decade. Florida's a little bit more involved, but man, I think their top recruiting battles are always seemingly against Georgia.
Is it that Alabama just produces a limited number of top flight players, or is it just that Georgia is a more fertile ground?
I think what's happened is, one, Alabama's not starting, but they're recruiting more nationally now, as we all know. Which isn't necessarily something new, but if you look at the top prospects in Alabama, there's probably about 14 to 15 every year that maybe Alabama and Auburn would consider. Doesn't mean they all get offers. And Alabama and Auburn usually just split those guys, and they get kind of who they want. Every couple of years, there's a late, battle between the two for one player. For example, like Javion Cohen, the offensive lineman, who picked Alabama last week, and there was a lot of controversy about whether Auburn pulled his offer and whether he was stringing along Auburn to make it look like he was considering Auburn, even though he was going to sign with Alabama all along, and just wanted to pull the Alabama hat out over the Auburn hat on signing day. There's something like that every couple of years, but I don't think the recruiting battles are as intense as they used to be, especially in South Alabama. Not to get too much in the weeds, but South Alabama is always a hot recruiting bed for Alabama, especially the Mobile area. And Auburn had a tough time getting into there. And they've done a better job here the last 4 or 5 years, Auburn has, of getting in there. And it's kind of split things between Alabama and Auburn. They're both getting guys. And now Alabama's going more national, and Auburn's fighting Georgia for more recruits in Georgia. So the intensity is not quite as there as it used to be, maybe day to day on the recruiting trail.
Brandon, quick thought before you go on the bowl game. Are we going to see a lot of enthusiasm in fans, or is it just kind of like ho-hum?
I don't know about the fans, but I'll tell you what, talking to the players this week, they are really excited and really pumped. And I think it's because of all the seniors, especially Derek Brown, Marlon Davidson, Daniel Thomas, Jeremiah Denson. they all decided to play in this game. They made no bones about it. They said, we want to go out one last time. We want to dominate this team. I think the team's really excited for this game. I don't know about the fans, but I don't think there's any question in my mind that this team's not going to show up, so to speak. Maybe as some other Auburn teams, maybe we're kind of ho-hum about things. But I think this team's really, really pumped up to go into that game. Try to win a 10th game, but also this is the last time a lot of these great, amazing seniors they have are going to play together. And I think they're going to try and go out, not just on top, but maybe try to beat Minnesota by, a couple touchdowns and make it put an exclamation point on their careers.
Great to have you on. Great talking to you. We'll talk to you very soon, Brandon. Have a Merry Christmas.
All right, you too, Paul. Happy holidays, everybody.
You got it. Great stuff. Brandon Marcello, our go-to man on the Plains. Let's take a break. More to come. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Messaging coming out of Auburn, guys, as we have reflected back on the past and looking ahead this week.
I think, like he said, the momentum they got from beating Saban in that Iron Bowl, it kind of has to carry over till next year, right? Bo Nix looked great. That team put up 48 against Bama. Like that, it has to kind of help. It helped recruiting, clearly, I think. That's why they had a top 5 recruiting class.
And they got a good bowl game. I mean, they should roll over Minnesota's a good team, but if they're really, if Auburn is going to take that next step, they should be able to do to Minnesota what they did to Purdue last year.
I think the SEC becomes very interesting next season. Let's just say that Tua does leave, right? Let's say that maybe Jake Fromm leaves also. Burrow's left. Auburn is the only team, that top teams, that kind of return their quarterback along with A&M, assuming that Kellen Mond stays. Maybe Auburn's in the mix for the SEC next season.
Let's look at the Auburn great plays or great games they've had
for some reason. They
because it's
also
easy.
Involve Georgia, but let's just go ahead and get these going.
First is the comeback, Paul. We were talking about it. One of the best.
All-timer.
Yeah.
Classic game.
The national championship game.
Dyer's knee was not down.
Which is such the strangest call.
Yeah. Led to this.
Well, don't forget, Cam tried to run it over on the play before against the wishes of Gene Chizik.
Yeah. This one would have been probably the play of the year.
Prayer and Jordan Hare. Just bat the ball
to
down.
catch that,
was a great play.
And then this
that
year.
was actually a more difficult play than the kick six.
Yeah.
It was.
But
speaking of which.
This is still the play of the decade.
.56-yarder, no, does not have the leg.
The ball was in the air, coming toward you. What was in your mind? Catch it and run.
He'll run it out to the 10, 15. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. They're not going to keep him off the field tonight.
It's a rivalry game, and glad it worked out in our favor.
First time I've ever lost a game that way. First time I've ever seen a game lost that way.
No. Shot of Saban. 3-peat down the drain. Auburn wins the game and gets to play for the national championship. Welcome back. Glad you're here. And Carl is up next in Alabama. Hello, Carl.
Hey, how you?
I'm well, thank you.
I just wanted to wish you and yours a happy holiday.
Thank you.
And tell you that I've followed you since you were writing articles for the Post-Herald. That was quite a while ago.
Yes, it was.
And I think your article came out on Thursday.
Well, originally it came out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday was not one of my days.
All
Doesn't matter.
But I'd always stop and buy a paper. I think you kept that thing alive.
Yeah, people always told me that, Carl, that if you were not there, the newspaper would go under. And ultimately, I did leave the newspaper, and sadly, it went under.
I know it. Skarbinski couldn't carry the water.
I don't think it was my fault. I think the damage was done, but I was not there at the end.
Yeah. If you remember, I called you. You were hosting a show out of Miami years ago, and I called and talked to you and asked you if you were going to change employers, and
right.
I asked you if we would hear from the same acerbic, caustic Finebaum of old, and you said probably not.
Yeah, no, Carl. There's been a great debate about the softening of Paul Finebaum, if I could talk about myself in third person. But I think some of that comes from age. I mean, I started in my 20s, and I don't think I have quite the vitriol that I once did. I realized that you can be nice now and then to people, and back then I didn't believe in that. I just didn't understand the idea of, there's something good going on.
Yeah. Well, I've even seen detected a little softening on our sociopath from Tuscaloosa.
Carl, I'd have to get you to describe that, because he, to me, there are moments of decency, because I think he's deep down a pretty good guy, but when he goes into the outer reigns or rungs of craziness, he is off the charts.
But I enjoy him a lot.
Well, he's more interested in politics right now. He wrapped himself up with the Trump campaign a couple of years ago, and so everything that happens to the president, he is personally invested in.
Well, his cup runneth over.
Yeah, no, he's listen. If you follow the president as your obsession in life, you've had a busy 3 or 4 years.
Absolutely.
Busy 3 or 4 days.
No. Well, happy holiday to you.
Well, Carl, thank you. I'm just especially gratified that there are a few people that remember my initial career.
Well, you need to get back to Birmingham and stop all this traveling to New York City and all that cold weather and everything. And
now, Carl, I got to admonish you. I hear that every night when I go home. Now I hear it during the afternoon.
Well, it's true.
My wife has told me that a few times.
Well,
she's from Birmingham, of course, and her family's there.
The truth will set you free.
Well, thank you very much, Carl. Appreciate that.
Okay, have a good one.
Man, that was kind of can't get away from that that nagging. When are we going back to Birmingham? I said, just calm down. We'll get there eventually. we gotta fire a few more coaches. Mike is up next in Georgia. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Paul. I've never been to a wine cave either, but I heard that Larry from Shelby has got a pretty nice Bud Light cave. And
yeah, he does.
I would wager that it's true.
But not only does he have a Bud Light cave, which he's got a 12-inch Emerson TV in there, black and white, from Sears and Roebuck in 1958.
I can't
got 3 channels.
I can't believe it. 3 channels. Paul, I'm a little nervous today. My 12-year-old son is down in South Georgia. He's being supervised real well, but he's actually out hunting black bears. So I'm a little bit on edge. So
I don't blame
your show
you.
is giving me some comedy and relief.
Well, that has to be pretty nerve-wracking.
Well, it is nerve-wracking. Again, he's in good hands, and he's quite the outdoorsman and hunter. So anyway, I'm sure it'll all be good, but it does put you a little bit on edge. Paul, can I ask you on a football question, if you had time?
Sure.
You mentioned, kind of with a twinkle in your eye a few weeks ago, that when the time came, that you might give us a little bit more insight on that time period when it was, more or less announced that Vince Dooley was leaving Georgia and going to coach at Auburn.
I will.
And
Mike, I have to go to a break here, but I tell you what, that's a